welcome to this episode of the REI Rocketfuel podcast. Today, I am so excited. We are joined by none other than Wichita real estate mogul, Francis Baalmann. Francis, thank you so much. I know you're a very, very, very busy guy running the multitude of companies that you have at the level that you run them. So thank you for carving out 20, 30 minutes to come and do this.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So let's kick it off. How did you get started in real estate? Why did you get started in real estate?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I always had this entrepreneurial kind of itch that I wanted to scratch. Grew up on a small farm, oldest of 9, 8 boys, 1 girl. And I started scratching it even in high school. I'd go to the local fairs and put together little booths, little Master Chief booths with dart guns to make money. So it was just something that I had a passion for. The fact that I could control the operations and make money was just something that always drove me. But I knew that most businesses failed. And so when I went to college and went to Newman University, I knew I wanted to start a business, but I wanted to take a more conservative route. So I told myself I would go try to get a good high-paying salary job and go to law school, and then try to leverage that salary and those relationships to start some sort of business to hopefully get to the point to where I could walk away from the law firm or whatever job I had if I wanted. So that's the mission I set off on, try to live below my means, work really hard at the law firm, and use that money to springboard some sort of business or opportunity. So I didn't bat 1,000. The first business I started was a restaurant. It was a small sandwich shop on the south side of town, and I learned pretty quickly.
In Wichita?
In Wichita.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's called Blue Skies Bistro out south. And so I learned a lot from that, a lot of good lessons that kind of transitioned over to real estate. But I figured out that the food business was not for me. Sure. And so that broke even from a dollar standpoint, but was a big negative from a time standpoint. And so I sold that. And then I kind of said, well, what's next? Let me try real estate. So started buying single family houses on the west side of town where I was from. That seemed to go pretty well. The fact that I was a lawyer, I think, helped keep some of the troubled tenants away. Sure. If the landlord's going to be a lawyer, then we're going to follow the lease agreement that we both signed. So yeah, got up to about 5 properties, primarily using 30-year fixed loans, putting 20% down, which in retrospect, I'm glad I did those because those 2 and 2.5% interest loans for 30 years are really nice right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Those are great.
Yeah, so then I got up to about 10 or so in 2015, and I was self-managing, had other people come to me and say, hey, Francis, I know you're doing this rental thing. Would you mind managing my property? So that's when I made the decision to actually start a management company. I started Reliance Property Management. And then for a few years on, it was just burning the candle at both ends. I was full bore during the day on my law stuff, and nights and weekends I was buying properties, picking up new clients to manage. And we just kept going like that until we got to the point in 2017 where I went to one of my brothers, Jonathan, who was a rising star out at Coke. And I said, look, I've got something here and I want you to be a part of it. I'll give you a percentage of the company if you just come run this for me.
Oh, Jonathan was working at Coke, you said?
Yep, he was over at Invista doing really well, kind of rising star. And I made the decision that I thought I would rather have a slice of a big pie instead of all of a small pie. So
yeah. You'd rather have 70% of a watermelon than 100% of the grape.
Exactly. And that was the percentage. I gave him 30, I owned 70, and we were off to the races. And he's done a really good job. And his skill sets complement mine in that I'm more of the sales, glasses half full, let's grow. And he's more of the processes, operations. We got to actually run this thing. So he came in and did a phenomenal job. And we have grown to the point to where Reliance manages a little over 1,300 properties. Of those, I own
1,300 properties or 1,300 doors?
We primarily manage single family houses. So of the
wow.
So like of the 1,300 properties, probably 1,200 or 1,250 are single family properties. So that's kind of our niche.
Wow.
We have
a lot of people talk about, doors and units and, they're a property management company that manages 5 properties, but they happen to all be large apartment complexes. But to have 1,300, or to have 1,200, even 1,250, even 1,000 individual doors, individual addresses is bananas.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And Jonathan and the team there, I think we have roughly 25 employees. Him and Rachel, the manager, and all of our employees, they do a phenomenal job. But yeah, and so as it grew, I started to be able to scale, and I thought, okay, I can get labor cheap. I brought HVAC, roofing, and plumbing. I've got all those licenses in-house to help keep our costs down for our owners at Reliance. How can I leverage this to start some new businesses? So I started getting into flips, connecting with people like yourself. And so we have a flipping division that's separate from the management company. We flip, I think this year we're at 28 houses. I think we'll end around 40 for the year. It's just like on HGTV. We buy something from Lawton, the wholesaler, and fix it up and put it on the market and hopefully make a good profit and just keep going. So we do that. And then short-term rentals, I've also gotten in. I own 12 down in South Padre, and they perform very well. I have 4 in Wichita, and surprisingly, those have performed very well. So we have a short-term rental division. So we've been able to kind of create this funnel to where when a property comes in, we can analyze it from multiple ways. It's
right.
Like, flip it. Can we put it in our long-term rental portfolio? Or can we put it over in our short-term rental portfolio? And so it gives us a lot of optionality.
Yeah, no doubt.
When we're doing that. So yeah, so and so I hit my goal. I retired from the law firm at the end of last year at age 39. And so my day now consists of doing the real estate, talking to realtors and wholesalers. I'm kind of the point of contact as the properties come in. I analyze them, send them off to the team, and then they go do their thing. So
sure. Wow. Okay. That's quite the intro. I tried to take notes and, keep track of all the things going every which way, but I think that would be a fool's errand to try and keep up with you. So why of all things, you said the food business wasn't for you and you found that out really early on. What made you choose real estate instead of starting your own law practice or stocks or financial planning, or one of the myriad of other opportunities that I'm sure as a high income W-2 earner and an intelligent and educated person with a law degree, the world's your oyster. Mm-hmm. Why real estate?
So real estate's the one class of investment assets that I think offers so much advantages over. Like I invest in crypto and I invest in stocks and those all have their place. But I mean, real estate has 4 huge benefits that other investments do not. The first is the ability to leverage. And so, I mean, if you give me $1 million and say, hey, Francis, go try to make a 10% return, I may be able to do that in the stock market. But if you give me $1 million and say, Francis, you can go lever that and, use that as a 20% down payment to go buy homes, then I can probably get a 20 or 25% return. And then by the time you throw on the appreciation, it's nice. So, yeah. And you go to a bank and try to say, I've got some Walmart stock and I'd like to get a loan on that so I can go buy more Walmart stock. They may do it, but they're going to say it's a 50% or a 60%, kind of a deal. So leverage is huge. And so that's the one thing. The second thing is, the appreciation on it, and the fact that the tenants, that the appreciation you get in rent and in equity is unlike any type of other investment that I've seen. So, a lot of times with stocks, you may get a ton of appreciation, but not a lot, with like Apple or whatever, but not a lot of dividends or vice versa. But real estate, you get to kind of ride both waves. You get to ride the cash flow and the equity appreciation. The third is the tenant actually pays down the loan, which is beneficial. And then the fourth is the tax benefits. I mean, they're just phenomenal. If you get a good tax advisor and you or your spouse qualify as a real estate professional, you can wipe out all of your income. You can take it all the way down to zero, which I have not found another investment that you can do with, unless you're just losing your socks and there are actual losses.
Real estate's the only one you can lose money on paper and make money in real life.
Exactly. So real estate's been a game changer for me. It allowed me to leave the law firm practice in my 30s, and I don't think any other type of investment or business would have
got you there.
My goals as quick as they have.
Sure. What's the biggest lesson you've learned, or the biggest mistake that you've made? And if the answer to those is the same instance, that's fine.
Yeah, so I always tell people like I own over 300 homes. I flipped a lot of homes. When I look back, there's only a handful of properties I wish I hadn't have bought. And the three that stick out to me were in Manhattan, Kansas.
Okay.
One of my good friends who used to work at the law firm I worked at, his name was Eric Pauly. He had three houses in Manhattan, Kansas, and I decided it was back then, everything was growing. I was buying these houses, they kept going up, management companies going good. I thought everything I touched turned to gold.
Sure.
And that was a huge mistake. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just replicate what I have here in Manhattan, Kansas. It'll be great. And so I bought the three, didn't do my research on the Manhattan area, didn't really have a team there or systems. And so the first couple of years I got lucky. I found a college student that was from Conway Springs, and I kind of had him do a bunch of stuff, the showings, the maintenance. And it's like, oh, this is great. But then he graduated. And
Sure.
the market in Manhattan shifted, and I didn't have the team or the leverage or the scalability that I had in Wichita, and they just didn't perform as well, and I ended up selling them at a loss. So
Sure.
yeah, that was the lessons I learned from that was be humble. Before you enter into any sort of new business or area, make sure you do your diligence, make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, your processes, and you can help minimize your risk that way.
Sure. So of all the deals that you've done, those aren't the only ones you had issues with or lost money on, or they are?
So there's been some flips where I broke even. There was one of the first ones I did in Rose Hill. I think I lost a few $1,000s on. But the great thing about real estate is if you've got multiple options, you may get into a property that you're going to flip. And, we had this happen 6 months ago, one on the east side where, oh, shoot, we got to do something with the foundation or do something with the concrete. Mm-hmm. And so you got an extra 10, 15, 20,000. And it's just like, okay, we're going to move it from the flip category over to the long-term hold category. Right. And then 5-10 years later, you're looking back and you're like, you know what? I'm glad I held that one because holy cow, it's up another 40 or 50% or whatever.
Yeah, we have a couple of those early on that we got into, and from a numbers perspective, we probably shouldn't have bought, but it was one of those like, we'll be fine. We're crushing it. Everything I touch, just turns to sold. Everything turns to sold. It's going to be no issue, no problem. And we ended up going over budget, and the end product, the market responded and just didn't think it was worth what I thought it was worth. And this is 4 or 5 years ago when you couldn't just put something on the market for, name your price and you sell it with 10 offers over ask. This was in a normal market. And we ended up reluctantly turning both of them into rentals. And I was like, man, that sucks. Like I was counting on that cash, coming back. That sucks. And they're two of our best performing ones in our portfolio. And we've got them on 25-year fixed mortgages, sub 3.5%. So I'm like, these are great. These are good ones. We're going to go ahead and keep those in the portfolio.
And I'm guessing the equity has shot up.
Oh, shot up tremendously. We actually just closed a refi where we lumped those two and a few more that we had with this other lender and moved everything now over to one lender. The equity that we were able to realize on that was unreal.
That got me thinking. Another mistake I think I made early on was I focused too much on the initial cash flow. So I tried to diversify. But most of the properties I was buying back in 2012, 2013, 2014 were these $60,000 to $80,000 properties where it's like, oh, I'm going to pick this up for 60 and rent it out for $850 and it's going to be great. And then I buy some higher end properties, but they just weren't as appealing to me because it's like, oh, here's a home in Mays Schools, a 4-bed, 3-bath for $115,000 and it'll rent out for the 1% rule.
Right.
Looking back, I should have been more focused on which properties are in areas that I think are going to appreciate more in equity and rent, because all the ones I bought in that higher end area, holy cow, like they doubled in value and the rents got up 5%. And then I look at the other ones and they've done okay, but it's no comparison.
Nowhere near. Yeah.
Yeah. To where the other group is. So that was a good lesson for me. And when I analyze stuff now, it's let's not focus just on the initial cash flow. What areas do I think are up and coming? What areas do I think have room to grow in appreciation and really try to hone in and focus on those?
I think it's fair to say that that you need those other ones that do have higher cash flow to help you kind of weather the storm every month of like, so it's not just all net negative. Like if your initial cash flow is tight or breaks even on these higher end ones, but you're hoping for that appreciation and increase in rents, you probably need those $700, $800, $900 a month rentals that are cash flowing $200, $250 a door every month to help subsidize, for lack of a better term. No?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's true. And then it also obviously depends on your situation. Like if you've got, like in your case, a nice wholesale business where you got cash coming from there, or in my case, flips in my property management business, then I don't need my rentals to help cash flow.
Right.
And so I can say, okay, I'm willing to build up. But yeah, if you're a new real estate guy or gal and that you need that rent to pay bills and put food on the table, then yeah, you definitely need to focus more on initial cash flow because you need it to survive off of. So I think it depends on your situation too. But yeah, no, I agree with what you said there about getting a nice mix of cash flowing and appreciating properties.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. What earlier in the show, at the very, very beginning, you had said, you knew from the jump, most businesses fail. Most of them do. Why do you think you have been so successful when so many others haven't? Like, what makes you and your businesses great?
That's a good question. I think it's a few things. Number one, so like the customers at Reliance, like if I'd be managing your property and it would be vacant and it would be up for rent, like it would keep me up at night. Like it just bothers me. Like I always naturally put myself in the customer's shoes, and it's like, we got to meet expectations. We got to do a good job. And so I think that's part of it. Integrity is another part of it. And then, being humble, and like when Jonathan came into the business, he's like, look, we gotta do these processes. They'll improve our quality, do this and do that and do that. And I disagreed with him on some of that, but I took a step back and said, put your ego aside, Francis. Let's hear what he has to say. I'll think about what I think we should do. And then being humble and trusting your team and trusting the people that you put into place. I think that's really helped. Where I've seen other business owners struggle to where they're kind of a dictator up top and they're just making all the decisions and they just need minions to run around, and those don't seem to scale or do as well as the ones where you get a good team in place and you get out of their way and you let them go execute. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I cut my teeth as an agent when I first got into it. And I mean, for me, it was 70, 80, 90 transactions a year, running around, hair on fire, doing everything myself. That's the life of an agent. And I did that for 2 years back to back and made the same money. And that third year on January 1st, I was like, I have to go do all of this again just to make the same, not even increase, just to stay where I'm at. I have to go do all of that again. And it was a wake-up call for me, luckily, at the age of 19, that I was like, I don't want to be holding open houses for the rest of my life and showing houses in the evenings for the rest of my life. Like, how can I get out of that agent hustle every day, every week, all the time, year over year over year? Like, I don't want to hold open houses when I'm 35. I don't want to hold houses when I'm 25. So, being an agent for me, similar to, you with the law firm, it was a means to an end. It was, I have to make this money so that I can go do this. And right. It was, let's burn the candle at both ends and make as much as we can as an agent, as fast as we can, and build this up so I can get out of being an agent. As it was a means to an end for me. It was never about building a big business or brand as an agent. It was about getting out of that and doing it for myself. So I totally understand that. And we wouldn't be the operation that we are if it was just me. I mean, there's just not enough hours in the day to flip the amount of houses that we do and do the amount of wholesale volume that we do without the team in place. I just couldn't do it.
So I know you're interviewing me here, but there's always a question I wanted to ask, and I'm going to do it on the podcast. So we work, I mean, my funnel primarily is wholesalers and filters. I don't do any flyers or mailers or anything like what you said, but you have literally went from Since you started, I mean, I don't know volume wise how you compare to everyone else, but at least for my deals, you're the biggest wholesaler in town.
Yeah.
And you're one of the youngest too. And so why do you think you've been able to go from zero all the way to where like you're the biggest player in Wichita, at least in our eyes? So I'm going to flip that question you asked me back on.
Sure.
You, so.
And the answer is the same. I mean, it's Marcus Lemonis is a person that I follow and listen to a lot. He had the TV show The Prophet on CNBC. I follow him on Instagram. I've read his books and listened to his podcast. And he's got his 3 Ps. He's got his people, process, and product. And that's been aside from the personal things for me, like being disciplined and being resilient and like building the processes that they follow and building a business that they can work at, aside from bootstrapping it and just getting it off the ground, which every business owner has to do. At some point, there was, okay, the business is losing money. If I'm doing stuff that's $15 an hour, I need to be having lunch with Francis or another buyer and, maintaining those relationships and finding out what we can do better. Like I need to be doing those kind of things and expanding and figuring out. And we're big on implementing EOS at our office. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into that or if you're familiar with the concept. If you want to learn more about it, you can. The book is called Traction.
Okay.
They've got a follow-up book called Rocketfuel, which is like the next level to it. So EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. It's a really, really simple way to organize your business and delegate roles and elevate people. And it's a huge, huge piece of ours, but leveraging my team, giving them direction, and then getting the hell out of the way and letting them do what we hired them to do. I have a lot of trust and faith in my ability to recruit and hire and keep a culture at a company. And if I focus on that and hire the right people, maintain the culture that they want to work here, they get excited about doing deals here, then the rest of it takes care of itself.
Yeah.
You give them direction, you give them room to run, and get the hell out of the way and let your rock star people do rock star people shit. Yeah. And then all along the way, hiring is guessing, firing is knowing.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be quick to double down on the things and people that are working, but even quicker to get out of the things that aren't and people that aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't lie to yourself. Don't hold on to a loser.
Yep. Well, it's very impressive what you've done at your age to have, the biggest wholesale group in town. So, and we love it because the deals keep coming. So keep them coming.
As long as you keep buying, we'll keep kicking them your way.
Yeah.
Works for me. With everything that's changing, the interest rates, the market in Wichita's cooled down a little bit and people are starting to freak out, but this is just what a normal market looks like. This is what a normal, sustainable market looks like. How do you see that, or how has it impacted your business so far this year? And how do you see your strategies or your business changing over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We've thought and looked at the numbers on this a lot. So I'm going to break it into the flip business, into the buy and hold business. So on the flip business, what I've noticed is the properties that we're listing that are $200,000 or less are still super hot. Now, we're not going to get the 20 people viewing the first day and 6 offers with 3 escalation clauses and all that good stuff. But I mean, we listed 2 this month, one in Orchard Breeze, one in Southwest Wichita. They were under 200 and they both went over ask, and we're going to make money on those. Once you start getting into the 225, 250, 300,000s, at least what we're seeing the last few months is those tend to sit longer, and I'm not getting over ask. Whereas 6 to 12 months ago, man, those same thing, 10, 15 months over ask. So we're adjusting our strategy to try to focus on flips that have ARVs $200,000 or less, and that makes sense. So the starter homes instead of so
those are always going to be in high demand. Those don't go away.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And And on the buy and hold side, I think it's a good opportunity to find more deals, because you had all these young guys and girls that were starting. They didn't have a lot of money, but they could go to some of these lending institutions that do the ARV appraisals. And if they bought right or found a deal from a wholesaler, they could have no money in the deal. And the banks would loan them on that. But now as interest rates are going up, these banks are running debt service coverage ratio analysis. And I've had those young people come back to me and say, I can't buy this. It's appraising out. I'm getting a great deal from Lawton, and it's appraising out, but the bank says based on the debt service coverage ratio, they can only loan me at this amount.
Right.
And so unless they have that cash, they can't close. So if you're playing out on the field with 100 guys, you've now taken half of them and just put them on the sideline for now.
Right.
So the ones that are left, there's more opportunities and less buyers. So we've been able to pick up some good rentals the last 3 or 4 months, just because I don't think that there's as many people buying. And I don't know if you've noticed that on the wholesale side, if it's harder to source deals to buyers because of that reason. But of the 18 we have under contract right now to buy, I'd probably say half I got on MLS. Half of them I got on MLS. Whereas 6 to 12 months ago, they were all from Lawton and realtors before they hit the MLS. So there's more MLS opportunities now. And
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, from a wholesaler standpoint, we strategically went into it when we started. We didn't do the email blast. We didn't do the text blast. We didn't, post it to Facebook groups to try and build, this cash buyer list where half of them are agents that maybe have a buyer someday and they want to walk it and build their commission in. And there's all these extra docs, and it just wasn't of interest to me. And I came from that world. I was that guy, and I know how the other side of that looks, and I don't want to deal with it. In either case, where we came in and built it was based on the relationships I had built when I was networking my ass off and building up the agent side of my business. That's, those were the buyers. I already had those relationships. I knew what they were looking for. I knew what their buy box looked like. I had all of their contact info, you included, and we just kind of started texting this short list of people. And 85% of our deals get bought by the same 8 or 10 guys. Now there's a couple that, doesn't work, but I know that someone bugged me about a house in that area one time and they end up buying it. But 90% of our stuff gets bought by the same 8 to 10 guys, which we like because we don't have to build a buyer's list from scratch. I did, but now it's serving everybody well. And for me, it's easier to maintain those relationships than 60 people I've got to, touch and happy birthday and let's do dinner and this and that, where I would just rather, instead of trying to convince people to do business with us, and we do the same thing with our seller leads here. We're all about disqualifying faster than we qualify. Let's not do a half-assed job for 80 people. Let's freaking crush it for 20 people and just nail it for this group of people. That's our top. Let's do events and dinners and, bottles of wine and happy birthday stuff and all whatever we can do. So it's not really impacting us. I think the only piece that I've seen, and to your point, because there is more opportunities, is, we've got guys that, are usually, yep, cool. We can close in a couple of weeks. It's always cash. It's good. And, we got a text back the other day that was like, can we close in 4 weeks? I've got 7 under contract right now because there's so many opportunities elsewhere where it's like my cash is earmarked over here. Can we move closing out a little bit?
Yeah.
But on the same token, over the last 3 months, just this year, in the last 90 days, maybe 120 days, we've seen so many we're running up against on these appointments with these sellers, so many more out-of-state people than we were last year. And it's turning our cash cycle from lead to appointment to contract to close, money in the bank, from about 30-ish days, 28 days to like 45, 50 days, because they're signing this contract with the out-of-state guy for $30,000 more than we offered them because they don't know what they're buying, and then they can't move it, they can't sell it, they cancel the contract with the seller circles back with us. We've got pings and stuff that go out and follow-up sequences when we lose a deal, because we know it's going to happen. We have an 87% callback rate this year on deals we lose to other people that circle back to us. 87%.
That's crazy.
So, but it's turning our 30-day cash cycle, it's doubled it into a 60-day cash cycle. So I think for a very short while, we're just going to have to weather that until these guys get in here, back out of enough deals that they say, Wichita's not for us, we're gone. So we just have to weather that storm in the interim. But that's been something that I have seen, is there's a ton of opportunity, and people see that and they flood the market with it. So we are competing with more people out of state than we ever have.
And on the management side, we're seeing that too. Out of every 5 new owners we pick up at Reliance, I'd say 2 to 3 of every 5 are out of state.
Wow.
And they're from California, they're from Colorado, and
Vegas.
And they want to invest in the Midwest. And
can't blame them.
Yeah, I don't either. And
can't blame them.
It's good if you own a bunch of property, because it's pushing up the values and suppressing cap rates, but it also makes it more difficult if you're trying to keep buying, because the deals historically haven't been as good. But that's cooled off the last few months. I mean, there hasn't been as many outside investors, new investors that we've taken on. It's been more local. But yeah, for the last couple of years, it was people coming in and buying, paying retail prices, and they were happy with it. If you know, in California, you're gonna have negative cash flow if you buy there. Oh, what's this? I'll take a 6 cap. And
no doubt.
Yeah,
absolutely. We sold a couple deals to an out-of-state guy that worked with a hedge fund. This was up in our Kansas City marketing, not in Wichita. And he's connected with some Scottsdale money out in Arizona, and he's from Kansas City, knows the area. He got a bunch of his rich buddies and said, "You guys, I'm telling you, I'm from Kansas City. I'm telling you what you can buy an entire house for 80 grand and rent it for 1,200. And they're like, "What?" And so he just says, and they just buy and buy and buy and buy. And good Lord, I was on a call with him the other day. I think he said in the last 3 years, they just hit over the 500 doors that they own up there. They own a ton, because you can't get that in Phoenix or Vegas or anywhere else you're at. You've got to go to the Midwest to get it. And good for that guy. He got connected, and he's from Kansas City. He's right in the middle. He's doing good. He's doing really well.
And where the game's going to really change in Wichita is, you've seen those private equity hedge funds start to peak up. You know, I play in the single family lane. You see them start to buy single family houses in Texas and Florida and Colorado. You're starting to see it in Kansas City. If that ever comes to Wichita, you want to talk about suppression of cap rates and rising prices. Like, if that comes to Wichita, it's going to be hard to find deals at good prices. So,
absolutely.
Buy now while you can.
Yeah.
In. I mean, because if that day comes, then the people that have the properties are going to be glad, and the people that are looking are going to wish they had started.
They're going to be sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I say it all the time. Like, off market, discounted real estate is always going to be in high demand. And if you can find a way to consistently source those deals, whether you're wholesaling it, keeping it as a rental, turning it into a flip or a short-term rental, if you having those different exit strategies, like you mentioned earlier, if you can find a way to consistently, if you can figure out a way to consistently find off-market discounted real estate and have different exit paths, you're about as secure as you can get.
Yeah.
As far as a sustainable business model goes.
Yeah.
So that's what you call recession-proof real estate. As we wrap up, what's your best advice for a new investor? They've made the decision to get into it. They've either done one deal or they're looking for their first deal, but they've made the jump. They're getting into it.
Yeah. I would say, and another benefit of the Wichita community is there are so many people that are willing to share their knowledge, their connections, the abundance mindset. I mean, there's local meetups and groups. And so I'd say make sure you go do that and just connect with everyone, because you go talk to someone like me, I'm going to tell you all the mistakes I made. I'm sure you do the same thing, and you can save yourself time and money by not making the same mistakes that those that went before you did. And And it astonishes me how many people are out there that are successful in the real estate community. They're willing to take time and share that. And so you can go from, you can save years in experience by connecting with those people. And then you can also pick their brain on what they're buying and, try to figure out what they're buying and see if that's a good strategy for you, and then start buying. There was a guy when I started that I was friends with that we would work out together, and I kept trying to get him to start buying. I was like, come on, well, I'll go 50-50 with you. And if you don't like it, I'll buy you out for exactly what you have in it. And he never did. And, we just kept going. I've got 6 now. I've got 10. I've got 20. I've got 50. And I think I started getting on his nerves when I kept saying it, but he never got in the game. And then he reached out to me a few months ago and said, I'm finally ready to get in the game. And I was like, well, that's great. But man, if you would have started back when I started.
No doubt.
Yeah. So get off, there's never going to be a risk-free investment. Real estate's not risk-free, but I think out of all the alternatives, it's a good solid one. Get in, start buying. You'll make mistakes. That's fine. Learn from them. Try to fail small, and just keep going. Real estate's not a get rich quick deal. It takes time. And if you've got a business like what you have, one that's kicking off good cash, like that'll make you rich, but you only build wealth when you take that and buy real estate. So make sure if you got the cash flow come in, just keep investing in real estate, and just trust me, in 10, 15, 20 years, you'll look back and you'll be glad you did.
So glad you did. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Francis, that was a hell of an episode. There's a ton of good ones back there. There's so many. My head's spinning with all of the clips of content we're going to get out of this that we can post, because there's the whole thing is chocked full of great advice. So if someone wants to get in contact with you in the Wichita market or otherwise, how would they do so?
Yeah, so you can just reach out to me on Facebook is probably the easiest way, or just shoot me an email, Francis Baalmann, which is tricky to spell, BAALMANN @gmail.com. Happy to go to breakfast or lunch. I've got a lot more free time now than I did a few years ago, so happy to connect and help people and help them pursue their real estate journey. You don't want to be at the top of the mountain by yourself. You want other people to be there with you. So happy to connect and share knowledge and help everyone grow. So
you're awesome. You're awesome, Francis. Thank you very much again for your time, and thanks for your willingness to reach back and help the next ones coming up. So if you like this episode, remember to follow us on social media, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to YouTube, send a letter by pigeon. I don't care. Reach out to us, find a way to stay in touch. More content coming. Francis, thank you again.
Yep. See you later.